So is dollar finally flipping bearish? That's what we're about to find out in this weekly outlook. So now we're going to start with the dollar index as usual. Now we're going to start from the weekly time frame, and I want us to look at something. So first of all, if you've been following me, you know very well from the higher time frame, we've been looking at this monthly fair value gap right here. There's a monthly inversion fair value gap and fair value gap that actually we want to see price get to. But if we look at price action right now, this weekly fair value gap here, we have been watching it as a point of interest. The moment we had price make this higher high, so all this bearish momentum here, we have been looking at it as a retracement. And so we wanted to see price actually tag this, then use this to push price higher so we can have the market going to a draw of liquidity, which is this buy side liquidity here, where we also have the monthly fair value gap. Now, so far, you can see clearly price is still within this range for some time, for like 4 weeks now. For 4 weeks now, price is still around here. And so far, you can see if you're just going to look at the fair value gap alone on the weekly time frame, you can see price has actually inverted this fair value gap. So the only thing we have left is this volume imbalance right here. So which begs the question now, are we really going to have that bullish dollar, or now dollar is just flipping bearish? So if you look at this dollar very keenly, you realize that this market has been in a range. If you're looking at it from the higher time frame per se, we are in a range. So there's a possibility that the market is not done with this range. And if the market is in a range, most of the time you find price will go sweep the highest point of the range, go for the low, go back for the high. And that's exactly what has happened. You can see that we had this first bullish move, price went for this high. Then we had all this bearish move, price came for this low. Then we had this bullish move, price came for these highs here. So now, is now price coming for these lows here? Is this the next target for price, or even these lows here in the range? So that can still be a possibility. But remember, because we still had this volume imbalance not violated, if we still get a bullish momentum, that is still a possibility. But as of now, it looks really heavily bearish, and I think it's wise to just work with what the market is giving us. Now, if you're looking at it from the weekly time frame, you can see we had this fair value gap, we had this order block, and you can see last week price tagged the order block, and then we've had this bearish momentum. And right now, price has actually inverted this fair value gap, although the volume imbalance is still here. But the bearish fair value gap, the bullish fair value gap, price has already inverted it the moment we closed below it. So this is what we have. So if the market is bearish, we're going to get more bearish momentum. Then, of course, we would be looking at all these sell-side liquidities as the draw of liquidity for price. And if you're looking at it from the weekly time frame, you can see also at this point here, we have this volume imbalance. And this volume imbalance is really important. So we're going to watch this volume imbalance and see how price will react from it. So let's look at the daily time frame. Of course, you can see this is the weekly inversion fair value gap. And you can see here we have that weekly volume imbalance. And on the daily time frame, you can see we have this order block here. So for more bearish move, then you'd want to see actually DXY price giving us that retracement to tag this volume imbalance and the daily order block before we have that bearish momentum. If this gets inverted, then that's the only time we can say we want to look for a bullish dollar. So let's look at USDCHF. So USDCHF and dollar are positively correlated. You can see we also have this volume imbalance, which actually has not been violated by price. But if you're just going to work with what we see on the weekly time frame, you can see we had this weekly order block, which got tagged by price. We've had all this bearish momentum, another weekly order block, which got tagged by price. And so far, you can see we have a volume imbalance right here and still an order block. Now, if you're going to see a bearish USDCHF, then of course you'd want to see price actually use this to push price lower. On the daily time frame, again, you can see we have a daily order block right here. And again, we have that, the volume imbalance there. So exactly the same thing. We want to see price actually, it would be nice if we get that retracement target, and then we see that bearish momentum. For a bullish USDCHF, now the only time we want to see a bullish USDCHF is if price inverts this. So let's look at EURUSD. So EURUSD and dollar index are negatively correlated, and again the same thing. If you look at it from the weekly time frame, you can see price has been in a range at this point for some time. You can see price took out these highs. We had all this bearish momentum. Price took out this low, and so far this is what we have. So we are still in this range right now. Remember, we were looking at this fair value gap here, and then last week that is when this got inverted. But again, you can see there's a small tiny volume imbalance here. But I remember I told you guys, the moment price inverts this fair value gap, then at that point it would be safe to say that we can now start looking for the opposite direction, because we've been anticipating bearish Euro USD. We're actually looking at all this as a retracement, and then we continue going bearish. But as you can see, this is what we have so far. Now, if you're going to look at a bullish Euro USD, if you look keenly, you realize that there's a weekly fair value gap here, which actually got tagged by price on the week of 27th April. And then last week, we had all this bullish momentum. So right now you can clearly see we have price of course inverted that weekly fair value gap, and then there's an order block right here, and we also have a volume imbalance created by price. So for a bullish Euro USD, then of course you want to see price actually retrace, tag this, and then we see a bullish Euro USD. So let's look at the daily time frame. On the daily time frame, you can see we have an order block here. So yeah, where we still have the weekly volume imbalance now. Yes, it's still the same thing. It would be nice if we get price tags this and then you continue going higher. So let's look at gold. If we look at gold, you can see very well we've had all these, still price is still inside this weekly fair value gap, and we've been looking at a bearish move because price is still within this point here. And if you look at gold last week, we had this bullish momentum. So price has actually tagged this weekly order block right here. Okay. So we cannot just start switching and saying, okay, now we're looking for a bullish gold, but there's some things that we can look for to confirm that gold is likely to flip bullish. The moment we see more bullish candles and gold, we even finally form a bullish order block, then that can be a fast sign that we are likely to see now bullish order block, bullish gold, even before this weekly fair value gap gets inverted by price. So let's look at the daily time frame. If you look at the daily time frame, you can see we had all this bearish momentum, and now we've had this bullish momentum. You can see price actually inverted this daily fair value gap, and right now price has left behind a daily fair value gap. So if this daily fair value gap is really important, this is what you're going to use to determine exactly if you're going to have a bullish week or a bearish week. If the price respects this, then it will be used to push price higher. However, if it gets violated and gets inverted, then that's the sign that this gold is likely to continue going lower. So let's look at NAS 100, and again, NAS 100, we're at all-time highs, and if you look at the weekly time frame, you can see price has been leaving behind breakaway gaps. You have this 1, 2, 3, and now the latest fair value gap 4. So we do have 4 fair value gaps left behind by price. So honestly speaking, I'm sure you noticed even when we were having all that bullish momentum, most of the time when we're having NAS 100 at all-time highs, price fails to even give us the deeper retracement to even retrace to weekly key levels. So if you look at the daily time frame, still the same thing. So far this is the latest fair value gap. If you're going to get a retracement, it would be nice if we can get a retracement here before we continue buying. All buyers have been buying from premium levels, because you can see price just leaves behind breakaway gaps. Because most of the time when price leaves behind a fair value gap, you always want to see price actually retrace. Because once you have price retracing to a fair value gap, it gives you a better buying level compared to just buying at the highest point. So that's all I prepared for this weekly outlook video. If you enjoyed these videos, kindly give it a thumbs up. If you have not subscribed, subscribe to this channel. I'll see you in the next one.